You guys, think back to all the imaginary worlds we've seen over the years. From dystopian sci-fi cityscapes, blurring the line between reality and fiction, to otherworldly fantasy lands, pushing the boundaries of past and present. We've all been pretty lucky to have visited such unique places. But to me, the most interesting are the ones hidden deep beneath the oceans. And now that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the sequel to the highest grossing DCEU film ever, which is not a high bar to cross, is swimming into theaters, let's revisit all the underwater cities in movies and video games. You got Atlantis from Aquaman, Atlantis from Atlantis, Talokan from Wakanda Forever, Rapture from Bioshock, the Gungan city from Phantom Menace. There are way more than you realize. So pack your bags, put on those breathing tubes, and let's get wet. Let's get started. Who remembers Splash, the romantic comedy starring Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah? You know this story. Mermaid shows up on land and gets arrested for indecent exposure. Eugene Levy sprays her with a hose, revealing her true form. And then finally, they have to save her from being dissected. Okay, maybe you don't know the story, but at the very end of the movie, as Alan gives up his normal human life for that mermaid, we pan over and see the underwater kingdom where she came from. And yep, there it is. That's all we get. It kinda reminds me of that last part in Contact, where Jodie Foster's character is whipped around the galaxy and catches the tiniest glimpse of the alien civilization, Vega. Or that last part in The Abyss, where Ed Harris's character, close to running out of oxygen, is rescued by an alien, who takes him to a massive city deep inside a trench. Even though there wasn't too much going on in these cities, as a kid, I still vividly remember these images, and my imagination went wild with what really existed down there. What were the mermaids like? Did they go to mermaid school? Or work mermaid jobs? Did they have mermaid vehicles? Or just relied on their fins for commuting? So many questions. My mom was like, "Shut up!" Until the Little Mermaid showed us what a kingdom at the bottom of the sea could look like. Yes, the Kingdom of Atlantica sure was a magical place. Never mind that the cover for the original VHS had a curious shape subliminally tucked inside. At least it was better than the poster for the remake, where Prince Eric is underwater? Who made this shit? But all that aside, it was fun to see a vibrant world that finally felt lived in. There were coral doors to concert halls, multi-level traffic flows to living quarters. The symphony under the sea had never felt so alive.
Place played the bass and he sounded sharp. The trout was rocking out.
It was definitely a much friendlier place than Moana's realm of monsters. This is a kids movie, right? And at the center of it all was Ariel. While the animation for Disney princesses up to that point had felt a little wooden and lifeless, okay, I'm scared. The Little Mermaid combined the talents of a pitch-perfect voice actress and a charming reference model to bring the rebellious redhead to life.
There's one point between takes and she just went, and her hair kind of moved. That's Ariel.
More than 30 years later, in the live-action remake, the visual effects company Framestore enhanced the world with seaweed, photorealistic fish, and hundreds of random objects for Ariel's secret hideout. But other than filling the bottom of the ocean with CGI, how did they manage to film the actors? Well, I'm glad I asked myself. Much like how the movie Nope used a method called day for night, the director explains a similar idea.
It's what we call dry for wet. Be on a blue screen stage with people basically flying. Then all the water will be added, the hair will be added.
We didn't have to fake it. You just simply were kind of moving in this altered state. You really did have the sensation of just floating.
And on top of all that, the hair was its own challenge. Getting it to stick to the actors' heads and stay clear of their facial performance was probably what most of the $250 million budget was used for, right? The hard-working artists who spent years... Oh, what's that? It went to Aquafina for the Scuttlebutt song? Damn it! But after The Little Mermaid, Disney was about to explore the forgotten city of Atlantis. The creative team did their research, finding everything from scientific facts to the most insane ideas out there.
All kinds of crazy, like hollow earth theories. Just a lot of outlandish stuff about there being an entire universe underground.
And using these theories, they created tons of concept drawings that showed a possible Atlantean ecosystem. The world of Atlantis felt mystical, magical, and organic. But rather than finding artists already working at Disney, they found outside freelancers.
To get a group of people working on it who just bring a different design sense, something that we might not have seen before in the animation world.
By using artists who had worked on movies like Men in Black, in Jurassic Park, they were able to create some unique creatures. The Leviathan was built entirely with CGI, which was modeled, rigged, animated, colored, and lit to create the giant, terrifying beast. Using this clever mix of traditional animation and 3D, they achieved nail-biting chase scenes and breathtaking wide shots. It was all so epic, they actually had to stretch out the aspect ratio to fit in everything they wanted.
You just get these wonderful panoramic vistas of these alien landscapes that really make you feel like you're there.
And speaking of aliens, we gotta talk about
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Star Wars. Star Wars.
It's easy to forget how much of a global phenomenon Phantom Menace was when it came out. People lined up for miles, rain or shine, dressed as their favorite characters. Okay. On the planet of Naboo, made up of scale models, where even the waterfalls were created with friggin' salt, the homeworld of Jar Jar Binks had to look equally impressive. As Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan follow him into a lake, we get our first look at the Gungan city.
The Gungans actually had this technology of force fields, and they can create these bubbles underneath the ocean. And that was a really fun thing to explore because visually it's stunning, of course, because you're literally in a world of windows.
And as the trio walks through the membrane of these bubbles,
how come they're not all wet when they get through the other side of it? And he kind of comes up with something like, well, if this electromagnetic energy plasma that sort of holds the water back, and as they go through it, it wipes the water off of them.
The landing they step on was a real set, but the rest was a fully CG, organically grown society made up of a sprawling city complex with dozens of interlinking living pods. When Jar Jar shows up, he's in big doo-doo this time.
You're in big doo-doo this time.
But after a quick chat with Boss Nass, the trio boards a bongo sub designed to look like a manta ray and practically constructed for those exterior and interior shots. I like how Qui-Gon looks back as if someone just lightly honked at him. It's a sea monster, dude. And you want to know how they made that sound?
And I went to my 4-month-old daughter, Emma, who had an interesting growling cry.
My guy, I think you need to call an exorcist.
I recorded that sound, then ran it through the computer, made it as deep and as roaring as possible.
And now, let's take a detour and learn about the 2007 video game, Bioshock. After the player crashes into the Atlantic Ocean, he ends up in the underwater city of Rapture. The entire world was conceived by an ambitious mogul named Andrew Ryan. His intentions were noble at first, wanting to create a perfect utopia. But like any great empire, corruption eventually seeped in, and it wasn't long before his city fell. And when it's time for battle, this first-person shooter gives the player total control. With your right hand, you wield an arsenal of heavy weaponry, and with your left, a plethora of supernatural powers. It all comes together to create a truly haunting experience, and Rapture is a place you won't soon forget. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the gaming spectrum is the serene and surreal Abzu. Following in the footsteps of games like Flower and Journey, Abzu takes the player on an emotional ride to the depths of the ocean. My favorite part was this underwater water. And once you're immersed and fully believe the underwater setting, you emerge in an air pocket among the ruins of a civilization that once was. You continue on and uncover more of this ancient city. And this is already after passing through these massive futuristic gateways, almost to suggest that the ocean you're in might not even be on Earth at all. This otherworldly feeling comes from the sense of scale, the vibrant colors, and the ethereal soundtrack they put together. Looks like it was too ethereal for that guy. Underwater cities aren't just limited to movies, and when you can find a good one in a video game, the rush of exploring it is truly magical. And now let's travel to the MCU. Being no stranger to creating never-before-seen worlds, like the TVA, Omnipotent City, and the Quantum Realm to name a few, Marvel worked with ILM to create the digital environments of Wakanda Forever. When Namor's warriors show up and kidnap Shuri, she ends up in the underwater city of Talokan.
The free diving is so fantastic and peaceful. When you are down in the tank, everything is silent and it's like active meditation.
Namor might feel that way, but the stunt coordinator sure didn't.
Absolutely everything is against you underwater. Safety is against you, time's against you, communication's against you, and you get underwater, the difficulty factor gets amplified by a factor of 100.
So to make things easier, they went with that trusted method again, dry for wet. And when it all came together, the original footage to the final shot, the wavy head feathers, and the CG crowds, we were ready for the final act, the earth-shattering battle between the Wakandans and the Talokan warriors. Wait a minute. I thought you said...
I have more soldiers than this land has blades of grass.
I don't know, man. Wakanda has a lot of blades of grass. And this is what we get?
And they have incomparable strength.
Do they, though? Miles away, Shuri and Namor have their own showdown. Oh no! Is she gonna be okay? Yeah, I think she'll be alright. See? Told ya. And finally, it's time to talk about the protector of the ocean, the guardian of the seas. No, not him. Aquaman. After Khal Drogo saves Boba Fett from a tsunami, he meets Green Goblin, who tells him the history of a majestic empire, an advanced and thriving civilization, on the brink of a digital revolution. But through greed and hubris, it was destroyed and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. It's there we finally see the modern-day interpretation of Atlantis. It doesn't stop there. We visit other kingdoms too. Fisherman Kingdom, Deserter Kingdom, Zebel Kingdom, Brine Kingdom, Trench Kingdom, and the Lost Kingdom.
We have explored space more than we have explored the ocean floor on our own planet.
So to create multiple societies under the sea, an army of artists was gathered to conceptualize everything from hydropulse rifles.
These guns, through some process of fusion, take water and turn it into this source of tremendous energy.
To battle suits.
The suit keeps the water inside, keeps the air out, like a reverse astronaut suit.
To ships that resemble all sorts of marine life. And when it came to the architecture,
here in the surface world, we build things out of materials such as brick, wood, metal. They don't necessarily have that down there. And so we're trying to pull a lot of influences from the ocean. The idea that maybe their buildings are very much like coral, that they're grown, perhaps.
And while the DP for Wakanda Forever shot Talokan with a softer, more ambient lighting, which was a choice, because I couldn't see shit down there, Aquaman went the opposite direction and amped up all the lighting to 11. By using these gigantic projections, they were able to get believable interactive lighting and reflections on all the characters. And with the help of virtual production, a mix of previs during filming that helps to envision the final shot, the team was able to invent some pretty unique sequences.
It's slow work, it's complicated work, and then of course it's always sweetened by special effects.
And once all that was fleshed out, their next challenge was using harnesses to get all that realistic underwater motion.
I mean, I love doing stunts anyway, I do. I love it, so I'm excited to get in the harness.
You said that you love stunts, and I'm very, very excited to get into the harness.
That's someone who has never been in art. I really said that?
It's this unparalleled creativity, mastery of film production, and meticulous CGI that made the first Aquaman crush box office records. And I can't wait to see what other ways they'll expand in the sequel. After this deep dive into underwater cities in movies and video games over the years, I hope you've gained a new appreciation for what goes into creating such thrilling and enchanting worlds. Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. Hey, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.